Hey, and welcome to episode 5 of Safety Talk with myself, Pandeli Patrick Eleftheriou, Mr. PPE, and Gert Hendricks, our safety coach from FTS Safety. Last week we were discussing safety files and safety management systems. Some nice topics came out of there that we're going to kind of push on a little bit this week. And basically what that came out of that was that safety is inherently a unique project that needs to be managed consistently, needs its checks and balances, and in a nutshell, provided you work consistently and do these things regularly, your management system, your safety file will be up to date consistently. You will reduce injuries, risk, disability and death and all the problems that go with it. But on that note as well, I also want to talk about one other thing. What is the purpose of this little chat that we're having and how we're doing it? So firstly, if you're looking for specific training and detailed information, we offer training at FTS Safety Training Academy, and our coaches and consultants can come and give specific training. This is meant to be a casual but informative conversation that's to help business owners, managers, directors, homeowners, and regular individuals and safety officers, just to kind of hear a on the ground conversation around the benefits and pitfalls of safety, and possibly to trigger some call to action for those of you who have got it on your mind and you haven't quite implemented as you wanted to. So from that point of view, we hope that you enjoy the show, and today we're going to be talking about people in safety and the attitude around it, because over and above, you can have the best project. If your people haven't bought into it and are not participating, what have you got?
It's very important.
So I'm going to ask a quick question. So Kat, you've been on multiple sites, more than we can count. And I know you have discussed this with Grant in one of our other short clips that are out in the internet web somewhere. And one of the examples you guys discussed was 2 sites run by the same company.
Yeah.
One site smashing it out the park, on top of everything.
Yes.
Other site literally can't get anything right, sites being shut down regularly. And ultimately, I remember the conclusion of that was the people.
Exactly. Your people is key, starting from management right up to the top. If you have management that actually bought into the program and they participate to every single thing on the safety management program, then you can actually start seeing that right down to the bottom. And when you start looking at your people as part of the solution and not the problem on site, then your communication will be different, and your implementation will be different, and your effects will be different. So that brings you to the way that you manage your people on each site. Right.
Now, because I can't help myself, you know that ultimately my brain is wired for business and people. Safety, unfortunately, it's a high priority, but it's not where my instinct goes to. So we came across this resource that Sasha, our video production guy, will throw onto the screen at some point, where we talk about people, how people are going to run, how people run safety, and how attitude implements safety. So the two sides of it is, one is being reactive and one is being proactive. So the one logic is, and I'm guilty of this in business and in safety, where I say people are the problem, focus on behavior, we reward or punish, we fear, we motivate with fear or intrinsic motivation. And for safety leadership, there's 2 big attitudes. On the one side, it's being reactive or apathetic about safety. That's going in with the attitude that people are the problem. So people trying to focus on changing behavior, using reward or punishment, using fear and extrinsic motivation. As a result, people are not learning as much, and they stop reporting because they slow down on reporting. It then leaves to people problems, and it's a never good circle.
And it stops,
On the other side, we've got the proactive and integrated approach, where we go in on the logic that people are the solution.
Yes.
We focus on building relationships and engaging in inquiries with your people, which will hopefully lead to increased trust and buy-in and learning, which will lead to high psychological safety. And Clive, wherever you are, I've been following you on LinkedIn. Got to thank you for that. This term psychological safety, I think that's something we're going to be touching on in future episodes, which leads to intrinsically speaking up and building culture on safety, which makes your people the solution. Now, looking at it in this beautiful graph, it seems so simple. What I would like to engage with you on this episode is to discuss the different elements on the reactive approach and then the proactive approach, and then to bring this back to what I was saying. The same problem applies in our business. It applies to how we run our accounts. It applies to how we run our supply chain. It applies to how we run our training academy. It applies to how we run our kitchen.
There's nothing new under the sun.
The reality is, what happens in business, and to all business owners and directors and managers, you have the best intentions. You go out there, you try to implement. Unfortunately, because we're so busy, we don't get to spend the time and nurture that relationship and build that trust with our employees or with our stakeholders. As a result, they let us down. So what do? We go to, as the terminology is, fear and intrinsic motivation. You're going to get a written warning, you're going to get in trouble, you're going to lose your job, or you're going to get a penalty or some sort of fine, you know. And as a result, people don't buy into it.
You know what, Patrick? If you have a look at every safety officer know this, and every good manager know this, that the Occupational Health and Safety Act is written so that you can care. But it's easier said than done.
How did the act get to where it is now?
You know what? The history of the act in South Africa started with the Machine Act, where even before the Machine Act, people had to die. Somebody had to pay with his life. Then they would go in and say, "Oh my word, we could have done this." And then slowly but surely, systems has been put in place. And then in South Africa, you had the Machine Act, the Marsh Act, where then, which was the responsibility of the state. When even then, somebody had to die or pay with his life or get a loss of limb, then the government would send an inspector and see what could have been done. So all of these systems is reactive. But with the OSH Act, Act 85 of 1994.
So where we are now, we're at 85.
1993.
1993, but version 85?
No, the Act 85 stands for
Act
it's
85,
Act,
sorry.
the 85th Act, which was proposed in 1993, signed into power in 1994.
Right, fantastic.
So that Act is the Act whereby they have transferred the liability to the employer. So it's a first attempt to make it proactive. So now the manager, according to Section 8, the employer needs to identify all the hazards, eliminate, mitigate PPE. So before work starts, he needs to see where people can get injured and starts eliminating it. And it's much like being proactive at home, because there's nothing new. We just spoke about it. So let's for example take the weekend is coming up, and you're having a bride, and your little baby girl is playing on the grass, and in the road is walking a dangerous dog. So what are you going to do?
I'm going to chase the dog away.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to do something. You understand? You're going to do something, and that is being proactive. So that is exactly what the Act is now written about: is to identify all the dangerous dogs and do something about it before they come and bite you. So that is the. But you know what? As I said, everybody knows it. It is.
But hang on a second. I disagree. I'm going to disagree. And maybe this is 21 years of business and starting to. I feel less confident now than I did when I started. But anyway, that's a different conversation. It's one thing to know, and it's another thing to understand.
Exactly.
Okay. So and that's what I want to unpack in this series and these discussions. Is that fine? We know. But yet we're still unable to prioritize. Okay? So we know that having a meeting and talking about safety before going on site is vital, to remind staff of potential hazards, risks, to remind them, hey, listen, you don't have to work if you feel unsafe, you need to bring it up before you proceed, etc., etc. And yet we will get in the habit, or we've seen clients doing it, they proceed for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. Well then, by the way, we're short on stock, so half the staff are actually gone out, or the bus came late, or something happens. Then the habit breaks, and then time goes by and you're not doing it. So as I kind of work through this and through these conversations, I'm going, well, ultimately what we're actually talking about is priorities.
Now, I would like to phrase it differently. You're actually correct, it is priorities, but I want to phrase it differently. You grow into safety. So, various of people's and various of levels of growth.
Yeah.
You understand? Like for even myself, I'm not the same safety officer that I've been 5 years ago. And I'm sure you've seen the difference.
100%.
So people grow into safety. So because people is not on the same level, the priority is not always the same.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say is this. I'm saying it might be, the priority might not be the same for someone, but they still have to do that check.
They still have to do
so
that check.
Basically it's got to somehow, and this is where this proactive graph, that's the part that I think we need to unpack a bit further, and will probably be on multiple episodes, is how do you go about encouraging people or getting them to understand? Because I've got two schools of thought. In business, we have tried to build this business and other businesses by getting all the staff on board on a basis of trust, and hoping that that would engage everyone and everyone will do what they're meant to do, etc., and the company will grow exponentially.
Yeah.
What we have found, however, is you can't substitute experience.
Yeah.
Okay? So unfortunately, just like we're having aha moments here in terms of realizations on priorities and safety and all that, I might, like you said, that's actually, I'm saying the same thing as you. At the end of the day, you grow into it.
You grow into it.
But how do you manage that when you've got 50 staff, 100 staff, 300 staff? I mean, it's difficult. That's the part that we're trying to unpack for ourselves. Or even if, let's say I'm a 20 staff restaurant, or a 30 staff contractor.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly there's got to be certain touch points or key things that we've got to, would it actually be potentially starting with management?
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned something to me in a previous conversation that on the sites that you deal with where the management come wearing their PPE and participating, generally the curve is that they're a lot more compliant. But when the manager is not respecting those own rules, that filters all the way down.
It filters all the way down.
So I mean, is that kind of it? Is the pitch to get management and leadership to truly believe in it?
You know what?
Embrace it or prioritize it.
I had clients that asked me to go to site because they have got issues, not been thrown off site, and I went to this site, did a beautiful presentation, and they stopped me within 5 minutes, and they said, "Thank you very much, but where's the CEO?" No, the CEO is still in his office. We want the CEO here, because that company knows that if you do not have the buy-in of the management or CEO, it doesn't matter what you're doing in the morning.
So what, did they actually say, stop your presentation?
Stop the presentation, I want the CEO.
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
And did he come?
Apparently he did go, it was outside of my agreement.
Okay.
But yes, he did go, but about 2 or 3 months later.
Okay.
And then they were happy. You understand? Because the CEO could resolve stuff. The staff saw the CEO coming on site and they knew this was business.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about a proactive approach, are we saying now, or are we unpacking, are we realizing that ultimately we're saying it starts with top management and leadership? They've got to buy in, but not even about the rules. I'm talking about intrinsic. Yes, it's the rule. It's even better.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's more evidence that this.
Exactly.
Because there's so much people thinking that it's just bureaucracy and extra paperwork for them. So I mean that also makes me excited. So we're saying that we've got a good, solid act that's actually based on good logic.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a very well written act.
Because I'll tell you what, I know. I mean, with a lot of the pessimism around South Africa, a lot of people, most of the interactions I have with business owners and staff, is that they go in it with quite a negative attitude around the act.
Yeah.
They're assuming it's there to cause hassle and interfere with their business.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, your experience is that it's not that.
It's definitely not that. The thing is, because there's terminology involved that the people is not familiarized with, then they perceive it as being red tape or extra stuff. But it's just the foundation of the act, and we started this conversation with it, is the duty to care. It's just be a good person. If you see the dangerous dogs, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
It's very simple.
It is actually that simple.
And how to communicate that is then makes it effective, because people on various levels of safety, that if a safety officer comes and talks to you and say you need to do this, and they don't want to do it, it's because the communication was bad. It's because what is this gentleman's graft?
Yeah, that's actually the proactive approach.
Yes.
So let's actually go through that a little bit further. Okay.
Focus on the relationship.
So let's focus on the relationship. So let's give an example. Let's pick. Shall we pick a?
Oh, I would love. I've got a classic example.
Okay.
I have several safety officers that have actually come to us and applied for a job, and they say they are very good safety officers. When they walk on site, the people fear them.
Okay.
I said, sorry, you cannot fit in our profile.
Yeah.
Because that is not the job of a safety officer. When the people start fearing you, then you have failed in your communication skills.
Okay, so let's pull this back a bit. So we've now got a client in Westville who's got 75 staff who wants us to go and see them.
Yeah.
The new CEO who's taken over has basically said, listen, I arrived, I've only been here 5 days.
Yeah.
He says this is an accident waiting to happen, and if the Department of Labour arrives, we're going to get shut down.
Yeah.
Now, how would we go about starting there, using this model here as saying that people are the solutions? Would you propose how would you propose moving through this graph to try and actually? Well, my personal opinion, just before we go into it, is that you've got two types of people in your business.
Yeah.
You've got those who will buy in and understand and will intrinsically participate in the solution.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you've got those who literally are working for a paycheck who are just going to show up.
Yeah.
I think part of the balance is shuffling between where to put your energy, where you've got to define the task specifically for the people who don't care and be on them with a checklist and make sure that they are compliant, either until they understand enough to move into this category, or just to make sure that it happens forever. Okay? And then you've got the other side where people, once they've got it, they're going to do it. You still always have to check. Yeah. Because unfortunately, people get busy. But it's got to happen like that. So to go back, the 75 company, I mean, how would you start it?
Okay. I've actually got a 8-step program that I follow with when people start with us. But the very first thing that I do is once we've compiled the content of the safety file, I've got the admin in place and everything. That is beautiful. That is a safety file that stands on the shelf. It's actually useless. The first thing that I do after we've done the admin is to get management together. Although it's the best part to walk with the guys on the floor and talk nonsense to them, that is fantastic. But if you cannot get the buy-in of management, so I have a compulsory 2-hour overview of the OSH Act and safety file implementation with them. And there we go through step by step, and we talk to them like I spoke to you. Have you got a child? Is your child playing? Dangerous dog? What are you doing? Understand? So we talk about them like that to make some safety simple and understandable, and not just refer to section 16 and refer to section 8 and so on and so on, but show them what is the intent of the act. And then obviously you close out by section 38 that says yes, you can go to jail. You understand? Because you have to have the authority in there, and then you also explain to them what their duties and authority is that they can enforce. So to have the most effect for me, and I've seen this so many times, once you've spoken to management and identify the issue so that they can resolve it, it works. It works. So
step 1, focus on management.
Yes.
Step 2 would be?
Step 2, once you focus on management, you go down to your safety team.
Okay.
Then you start working with the safety team. If the safety team has got the buy-in and know what they need to do, then you have your reporting structure that falls in place. That's your inspections and your safety meetings that goes. Once you've started your safety meeting, your next step is doing the communication. So then you do your inductions, your safe working procedures, your communications of posters, all of those things that needs to go out. So I actually get extremely passionate about it, because the thing is, every company is different. Every company is different.
But I just want to say, you said 8 steps, so where are you? Number 3 is?
No, you start with the first step is admin.
Okay.
The second step is safety management. The third step is then where you have your do your risk assessments and all those things. Your fourth step is where you do your training, your safety meetings. Your 5 is then where you do your induction with everybody. Your 7 is where you do your emergency preparedness program. Your 8th step is then, your last step is then where you do your revolving visitations. So where you hold their hand and you follow.
Okay, so that's a nice procedure for implementation.
Yeah.
And I like that, because that's clearly defined, how you're moving forward.
And everybody knows exactly this still needs to be done.
But this is the X factor that I'm saying, because we've seen it. We've still seen that probably 30-40% of the people drop out eventually. They don't continue it. So back to this conversation, onto the theme today. How do we make people proactive? How does it become culture in the business? How would a company, so let's assume they're not using us. They've watched this video, they want to go and implement.
You know what? I would say it's like raising a child. It's creating the circle of trust. You give your bit, you tell them what needs to be done, and you give them time. If they break that trust, obviously you reprimand. If they do not, if they do participate and make it a part of their culture, the trust factor grows. You understand? And then you can maybe give them something more, a bigger responsibility over a larger period of time that you don't need to watch them, and your trust grows. The moment that they break the trust, the trust circle goes smaller, and you start reprimanding and getting them in the correct place. And you can then use this reprimanding as per Section 8, or even giving incentives. You understand? But the best part is if they start realizing what it's all about. And you send them out and say, go home, make sure your family is safe. Have you spoken to your neighbor? If you tell them, I'm going to run to you, you can run to me. You understand? Those basic things. And then when they come back to your working environment and say, Lars, are you safe at home? Are your children say, yeah, we've done this, this, and this. And that's fantastic. And there's large companies in South Africa. Maybe I must name them. It's like Bitvest, when they did a 6 weeks home-based safety course with these people, doing nothing else but what to do to make sure that you're safe at home.
One of the first examples that actually got me interested in implementing safety was I read the book of Jack Welch, GM of General Motors. And when he took over the business, I can't remember the details. I'm really going back 15, 20 years when I read this book. But basically he said that when he took in the company, they had a good safety standard, but it couldn't improve. They were still having injuries on site. But there was a lot of paperwork and a lot of effort. So what they did is exactly that. It was a 1-year program of teaching home-based safety.
That's it.
At the end, they dropped half the controls. And still had a higher safety track record.
Exactly.
Because people became inherently aware of safety in every task that they did, because they were now associating it to every task, whereas before it was a checklist response. And I think that's the whole point of this graph that we're talking about, is that to become part of the solution, to bring it into culture, makes it far easier to manage, when it's this checklist task only that we discussed last week, and just some other project that's on the books, it feels like extra work. And I think that's part of the issue with safety, is that people always look at it and go, but you're adding extra responsibility onto my job that I shouldn't be here. Well, I'm a line manager, why should I be worrying about safety? And I think that is the whole point. That's why we started the Safety Talk web series, is that so that we could get people to talk about safety in their everyday lives, in their home, in their businesses, and we can build proactive people, proactive leaders, proactive employees, proactive directors, and get everyone truly on board in safety in every aspect of their work, play, and that's what I'd like to see.
I'd just like to say a last thing. Patrick, it's like a tipping point. You work at it extremely hard, consistently, and you keep on loading good behaviors, and then it becomes to a certain area which you call the tipping point, where everybody slowly but surely starts going on board, and you cannot stop it then.
I'm going to add another thing to that. And this is actually talking from business experience. I look at FTS Safety Group, and phenomenal growth, and very happy with where we headed. But if I look at it, we could have been 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 times bigger if I had implemented a system that ensured that all best practice, all the good things that we did, always continued.
Fantastic. I love that.
Because what happens is, we develop a good habit. It seems like it's going to stay forever, because you go, it's such a good habit, and it's habit now. And then things change in the business, dynamics change, customers change, or you've just been doing it for so long you can't remember why you were doing it because you haven't had an incident in so long. Okay. So you drop that habit.
Becomes mechanical.
Okay? And then maybe for 6 months you don't have an incident, then it starts again. And I'm not just talking about safety, but safety is a great example because it applies to everything. And then suddenly you have to redevelop that solution. If I have to really talk about how many times we've solved the same problems over and over again, but because we never implemented a system to keep it. So I think that this is a double whammy. This is a people issue and a system issue. You need a system to continue to develop and implement the good. To continue to revise that system to make sure that anything that's become obsolete can be removed, so you're not just working for the sake of working. And a people system to encourage, to create that psychological safety that we referred to, so people go, I feel good in this, I understand what I'm doing, I understand why I'm doing it, I know that if I report a problem, I'm going to be acknowledged and not shunned. If I report that I made a mistake, I'm not going to get in trouble. And if companies can implement that, and again, because I can't help thinking in both safety and in business, I think we will build safer and better businesses.
You mentioned it last week that there's a challenge out there for if we can create a platform where they can share their safety status with the Department of Labour or their clients, whoever the case might be. And then that platform will then be their guideline, as well as that platform will be their conscience.
100%.
You understand?
That one we're going to keep on talking about it. One day we're going to implement it.
We're going to do that.
So from myself and Gert, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us today. If you like what you see, please subscribe or share so we can get more people on board. Thank you very much and see you next week.